안녕하십니까. 미국문학 수업 시작하도록 하겠습니다. 저는 권기수라고 하고 수업 방식은 이렇게 됩니다. 플립러닝과 협동학습을 결합한 방식인데요. 1차 시, 2차 시 이렇게 세트로 시를 배우고 3차 시, 4차 시에는 소설 그리고 마지막 5차 시에는 문학 전반에 대해서 돌아보는 시간을 가질 것입니다. 플립러닝인 만큼 첫 번째 수업 그러니까 1차 시와 3차 시는 사전 영상으로 제공이 될 것이고 여기서 공부한 내용을 바탕으로 이제 대면 수업에서는 2차 시, 4차 시에는 협동학습을 통해 배운 내용을 적용해보는 시간을 가질 것입니다. 마지막 5차 시에는 문학의 심리성, 유용성에 대해서 얘기해보는 시간을 가지고 지금까지 배운 거를 종합해서 미국 문학이 가지는 그 고유의 가치에 대한 종합적 성찰을 하는 시간을 가질 것입니다. 미리 말씀드리는 점은 1차 시와 3차 시 같은 경우에는 이제 영상으로 나가는 만큼 또 이제 영어 수업인 만큼 영어로 수업을 진행할 계획입니다. 대면 수업에서는 한국말로 토론 내용을 진행할 것이니까 그에 대해서 부담을 가질 필요는 없을 것 같습니다. 바로 수업 시작하도록 하겠습니다. So welcome everyone and let's get started. Take a moment to look at this portrait. If you met her on a quiet street, what impression would you get? She looks calm, shy, and a little mysterious, right? This is Emily Dickinson, one of the most distinctive voices in American literature. She spent most of her adult life inside her family home. Inside her upstairs room, she wrote poems and observed the world from a distance. From that small, quiet space came nearly 1,800 poems, short, compressed, and filled with surprising insight. But unfortunately, most were not published. Only about 10 were published, but just anonymously. So she became famous after her death. I chose her poems to begin our American literature course because they're short enough to feel approachable, yet deep enough to reveal how powerful poetic language can be. There's one special feature of Emily Dickinson's poetry that I want to introduce. One thing she's especially known for is her use of the dash. The dash creates a long pause that interrupts or trails off a thought. It slows the reader down, adds a bit of tension, and even mimics the quiet breath of the observer. Before we look at the poems, let's review a few poetic devices that will help us read Dickinson more closely. In this video, we'll focus on two of Emily Dickinson's poems, and you will see how these techniques work inside each one. And later, in our in-person class, we'll use the very same techniques again, but this time with a completely different poem. One that doesn't appear in the video. So everything you learn here will carry over directly into our face-to-face discussion. So let's get started. First, contrast. Contrast is a technique of placing opposite images or ideas together to create tension or surprise. Symbolism uses simple objects like birds, feathers, or storms to represent larger ideas. Personification gives human qualities to something non-human, such as hope, acting like a living creature. Alliteration is a repetition of consonant sounds at the beginning of words, like gazing, grain, G. Tone refers to the poet's attitude or voice. Dickinson's tone is often calm, quiet, and observational. Rhythm is a pattern of stressed and unstressed syllables that gives the poem its flow, almost like a heartbeat. Dickinson often uses a steady hymn-like rhythm, simple, regular, and calm on the surface. But this simplicity makes the emotional shifts and pauses in her poems feel even more powerful. So this is an example. Emily Dickinson's poem, Hope is a Thing with Feathers, lines 5 through 8. Let me read this. And sweetest in the gale is heard, 4 beats. And sore must be the storm, 3 beats. That could abash the little bird, 4 beats again. That kept so many more, 3 beats. So this is a 4-3-4-3 rhythm, which is a hymn-like rhythm. And next, metaphor is when a poet describes one thing as if it were something else to reveal a deeper truth. For example, in Dickinson's poem, Because I Could Not Stop for Death, she writes, because I could not stop for death, he kindly stopped for me. He kindly stopped for me. Here, death is not a force or an event. It becomes a polite gentleman driving a carriage. There is this use of he. It's a very clear metaphor that helps us see death not as something terrifying, but as something strangely calm, even courteous. Next, we have rhyme. Rhyme is a repetition of similar ending sounds, and Dickinson is famous for using what we call slant rhyme. Rhyme that is close, but not perfectly matched. So instead of perfect pairs, she uses endings like near, here, or see, me. These almost rhymes create a slightly unstable, haunting sound, which fits the quiet tension in many of her poems. And finally, paradox. A paradox is a statement that seems impossible or contradictory at first, but actually expresses a deeper truth when you think about it. One of Dickinson's clearest examples is the line, I'm nobody, who are you? Calling yourself nobody sounds contradictory. I mean, how can being nobody be an identity, right? But in Dickinson's poem, being nobody becomes a way of rejecting society's pressure and embracing a private, authentic self. So the contradiction actually reveals a powerful idea. So these are the 9 poetic devices we went over: contrast, symbolism, personification, alliteration, tone, rhythm, metaphor, rhyme, and paradox. So please review them before class. Now, let's turn to our first poem. A bird came down the walk. A bird came down the walk. He did not know I saw. He bit an angle warm in house and ate the fellow raw. You see what's going on here? At first, the moment feels gentle. A small bird simply walks by, unaware of the speaker. But suddenly, everything shifts when the bird bites a worm in half and eats it raw. This abrupt contrast destroys the romantic idea that nature is peaceful or poetic. Here, nature is instinctive, direct, and even indifferent. He did not know I saw. This line places the speaker outside the natural world. The observer watches silently while nature behaves as it must. We are witnessing, not participating. There's also a subtle personification. The bird is treated like an autonomous being with a private inner world. He did not know I saw. It is as if the poet observes a person who doesn't realize they are being watched. This creates an intimate, almost ethical scene that we are watching someone who is unaware of our gaze. This leads to a deeper interpretation. So, when the bird behaves violently the moment it thinks no one is watching, we might ask, do living beings, bird or human, reveal their true nature only when unobserved? This connects naturally to the classic debate between Mengja and Sunja. Is human nature fundamentally good or fundamentally evil? 성선설 and 성악설 in Korean. Now, as I read this poem, here's the interpretation that really stood out to me. Of course, the bird itself doesn't have any moral intention. It's just following its instinct, not thinking about being good or bad. But from the speaker's point of view, and from our point of view as readers, the moment can still raise a very human question. When the bird behaves violently at the exact moment it believes no one is watching, it reminds me of Sunja's perspective, that living beings naturally follow their raw instincts unless something restrains them. To me, the scene feels closer to the idea that nature, including human nature, is in automatically good. The contrast between the gentle appearance and the sudden violence made me think about how different a being can appear when it feels unseen. So while the bird truly has no motivation, the speaker's experience of watching this private moment allows for this kind of interpretation. But again, this is just my own reading, one possibility among many. There can be many other answers. Talking about these questions in Dickinson's poems is fascinating because Dickinson never gives us clear answers, but she creates the perfect scene in which these questions naturally rise. And this is one of the real joys of American literature. There's rarely a single fixed meaning. Different readers can look at the same moment and come away with completely different interpretations. I hope you'll experience that kind of freedom and that kind of fun in our class. And I'm really looking forward to hearing all of your unique perspectives. Before we move on to the next poem, think about your own reaction. What emotion dominates this scene for you and why? Write your answer in the YouTube comments after the video. I'll read your comments, and if you have time, hopefully, we can discuss about it. And just to be clear, this question is simply to check that you watched the video. It's not difficult at all, and there is no right or wrong answer, so please don't feel any pressure. Just share whatever you genuinely felt. Let's move on to our very last poem. So we're going to move inward from the external world to the internal world. The first poem can be summed up in 3 words: raw, instinctive, and indifferent. Now, we will talk about resilience, persistence, and hope. So the second poem, Hope is a Thing with Feathers. Let's go over the poem stanza by stanza. The first stanza. Hope is a thing with feathers that perches in the soul and sings the tune without the words and never stops at all. I actually made this vocabulary box for you so that I can help you understand the poem more easily, okay? And again, if you have time, pause the video and try to make your own interpretation. Feel free using the YouTube comment section, or maybe you can come to me and show your own interpretation. Or you can share in class. Back to our first stanza. So here, Dickinson is basically turning hope into a tiny bird that lives inside us. It perches, it sings, and it keeps going no matter what. She's personifying hope, treating it like something alive, gentle, and steady. It's not loud, it's not dramatic, it just quietly exists. So this is how Dickinson understands hope, using personification. And second stanza, sweetest in the gale is heard, and sore must be the storm that could abash the little bird that kept so many warm. We saw this when we were learning about rhythm, right? Remember? There's also this vocabulary box. So this is where symbolism kicks in. The gale, the storm, isn't really about weather. It stands for difficult moments like stress, fear, loneliness, pressure, whatever hardship means to you. And here's something important. Dickinson uses contrast really intentionally. Hope is small, soft, and almost fragile. But the storm is loud, violent, and overwhelming. By putting those two side by side, she's showing us that hope actually becomes clear when everything else is falling apart. When life is easy, you don't really notice hope. But when life gets rough, that's when song suddenly feels louder and sweeter. So in this stanza, the storm symbolizes struggle, and the little bird symbolizes resilience, the part of you that refuses to break. And finally, the last stanza, yet never in extremity. It asked a crumb of me. This ending is so gentle. Hope asks for nothing. It doesn't demand anything from us. Not praise, not attention, not repayment. It just stays with us, quiet, steady, and always there in the background. When I was reading this, I thought of our parents. Like hope, our parents also just stays with us, always there in the background, supporting us, right? This can be also one interpretation. So like what I just did, you can make lots of different interpretations. And this leads to philosophical questions. Is hope something we create during hardship? Or is it something already alive within us, revealed only by difficulty? Think about it, and feel free to answer this on the YouTube comments, or you can even share it in class. And before we end this poem, consider this. What does a storm represent for you? A personal fear, academic pressure, loneliness, social conflict, anything. Share your interpretation in the YouTube comments. So to wrap up, so the first poem, A Bird Came Down the Walk, shows us the external world, raw, instinctive, and indifferent. In contrast, the second poem, Hope is a Thing with Feathers, turns inward and reveals the internal world, steady, resilient, and quietly supportive. What's interesting is that you can see contrast not only inside each poem, but also between the two poems themselves. The tension between the outer world and the inner world becomes part of the meaning. Together, they suggest the world outside may be harsh, but the world inside still sings. Next time in our in-person class, we'll work with the new poem and apply all the techniques we learned today. We'll compare interpretations, share ideas, and practice reading poetry together. We'll also analyze a modern pop song as a kind of contemporary poem, so you'll see how symbolism, tone, and contrast appear in music too. I'm not telling you which poem we'll work on in our in-person class because I really want to see your own creativity and your own interpretations. These days, many students immediately turn to AI tools like ChatGPT, and while they're useful, they can sometimes get in the way of developing your own thinking skills. So there's nothing you need to prepare for next class. Just review this video, stay relaxed, sleep well, and come with your own ideas. If today's video felt difficult since it was in English, feel free to watch it again. If you need subtitles or like the Korean version or something, just ask me. I'll try to do something, okay? But try watching without them first to build your English listening skills. Our in-person class will be in Korean, so don't feel pressured by this English video. And don't forget to answer the 2 questions in the YouTube comments. Right before class, we also do a short Kahoot quiz, so make sure to review the content. I'm looking forward to hearing your interpretations, so see you in class. That's it. Thank you. Thank you for watching.